While Gordon Lawshe was relaxing at his house one day in the fall of 2022, something caught his attention outside. He spotted a mysterious stranger dousing the trees and pavement with an unknown substance. This strange behavior frightened Lawshe, prompting him to contact local law enforcement officers. But when a cop arrived to investigate, he couldn't believe his eyes. This all happened in Caldwell, New Jersey. Lawshe, who's Caucasian, made a phone call to his neighborhood police station. The conversation was recorded. He said, "There's a little black woman walking, spraying stuff on the sidewalks and trees on Elizabeth and Florence. I don't know what the hell she's doing. Scares me, though." Looking at it from that perspective, you can maybe understand why Lawshe got the jitters. But here's the thing. He'd completely misjudged the situation. The key details were skewed. A mountain had been made out of a molehill. So what was really going on that day in Caldwell? Who was the mysterious woman? Well, that was Lawshe's first mistake. It wasn't a woman. It was actually a 9-year-old girl. On top of that, he already knew her. The youngster's name is Bobby Wilson, and her family had been neighbors for close to a decade by that point. As for her actions on the street, they couldn't have been less nefarious. During one of her classes in school, Bobby was told about the environmental dangers posed by spotted lanternflies. They're an invasive insect, in case you were curious. Anyway, following that class, the youngster decided to whip up a homemade batch of insecticide, mirroring a mixture shown in a TikTok video. From there, she set her sights on the neighborhood trees. Armed with the spray, Bobby started to soak each tree on her street, covering the dwelling lanternflies. Then, after removing their remains, she placed the dead insects inside a plastic container for safekeeping. There was nothing mysterious nor troublesome about what the kid was doing that day, but Lawshe didn't know that, and it led to a very tense moment. Responding to Lawshe's call, a cop named Kevin O'Neill pulled up in his vehicle to check what was going on. As he addressed Bobby, her mom, Monique Joseph, also happened to be walking down the street in their direction too. We wouldn't be surprised if a real sense of dread had washed over Monique at that stage. Unfortunately, we live in a harsh reality where the stakes are disproportionately high for people of color when confronted by the police in America. Age doesn't seem to matter either. Young children have found themselves in scary situations as well. One of the worst examples of this came back in January 2021 in Rochester, New York. And it involved a girl who was the same age as Bobby. In that instance, local authorities were directed to a residence that was experiencing family trouble. Once they arrived, the cops assessed the situation and then slapped some cuffs on the 9-year-old kid. From there, she was led towards their car, but the youngster was very reluctant to hop into the back seat. "You're acting like a child," one of the officers barked. Now, that in itself was shocking enough. She was quite literally a child. Yet things escalated to an unimaginable degree after that statement. As the kid continued to struggle and shout to her dad for help, the cop then doused her face in pepper spray. How on earth had it come to that? Anyway, incidents like that one in Rochester must have been bouncing around in Monique's head when she saw Bobby and Officer O'Neill together on the street. Might a similar fate befall her young daughter? You certainly wouldn't blame her for feeling scared. But as she got closer, the vibe and tone being given off by the cop made things a lot clearer. As captured by his body cam footage, O'Neill came to an almost immediate realization that Lawshe had made a mistake. Upon leaving his vehicle, he quickly saw that Bobby was just a kid, and she innocently explained what she was doing as he got closer. The cop maintained a kind demeanor and was understanding of Monique's frustration once he revealed why he was there. But perhaps the most heart-wrenching moment of this encounter in Caldwell came when Bobby interrupted the conversation between O'Neill and her mom. "Am I in trouble?" the young girl pondered. In unison, the adults fired back a resounding no. Monique even asked, "How many trees did you save?" They both tried their best to reassure her that nothing was wrong. Looking back on that, Monique spoke to CNN in November 2022, she recalled. When Bobby asked if she was in trouble, I knew that while she was holding it in, she was scared. I immediately went into mommy mode. Following her chat with O'Neill, the cop found Lawshe and filled him in on what had happened before leaving the scene. Yet as the hours and days progressed, Monique couldn't get the encounter out of her mind. She feared that if O'Neill hadn't been as understanding as he was, the situation could have been a lot worse for Bobby. And as we've already noted, those concerns were well-founded. So, a little over a week later, the mom brought the subject up at a meeting with the local council. Alongside Bobby and her other daughter, Hayden Wilson, Monique told the council that Lawshe's actions had been an example of racial profiling. Hayden also spoke up as she delved into the impact of this incident on both her younger sister and their family as a whole. The teenager's anger and frustration was clear for all to see as her speech went on. Hayden stated, "Bobby wasn't only doing something amazing for our environment, she was doing something that made her feel like a hero. What Mr. Gordon Lawshe did to my sister was extremely offensive, traumatic, and scarring towards my family. I can confidently assure you guys that she will never forget this." Her mom had a few more things to say too. Taking to the stand, Monique said, "Racism, intentional or not, is still racism. I'm not here to label anyone. I'm only here to share my point of view as a black woman, a black mother, and a black resident in this town." Perhaps you're wondering, did anything happen between her and Lawshe after he'd called the cops? Well, Lawshe's lawyer released a statement to CNN in November 2022 going into more detail, touching on the act that kickstarted everything. Gregory Mascara said, "Mr. Lawshe did not want to become involved in a confrontation, so he called the Caldwell police to look into the matter. Mr. Lawshe did not call 911 but used the police non-emergency dispatch line. Mr. Lawshe had no reason to believe that he would be putting anyone in harm's way by calling the police." Mascara continued, "Mr. Lawshe told Mrs. Joseph that had he known that it was her daughter that he had seen, he certainly would not have called the police. Mrs. Joseph didn't accept Mr. Lawshe's apology." Anyway, going back to the council meeting, both Monique and Hayden's speeches were recorded and then shared online. From there, the story exploded, with more people learning about Bobby's experience by the day. The youngsters' community rallied around her, as did the police department that received Lawshe's call. Yes, the folks there reached out to the family with a surprise offer. Bobby, Monique, and Hayden were asked to take a tour of the West Caldwell Police Department's base of operations. The officers went out of their way to reassure them that they had nothing to fear when it came to their cops. In addition to that, other locals got in touch with the mom to unveil a kind-hearted plan for her family. Yep, a group of pals created a GoFundMe page to help out Monique and her two daughters. But even bigger surprises were on the horizon for Bobby. Her love of science was about to open some unexpected doors. The Caldwell Environmental Commission was first up. After learning about Bobby's efforts to rid the lanternflies from her street, the commission pushed for her to be honored with one of its yearly prizes. So the youngster earned a sustainability award. It's a prize that's only handed to people who try to improve the environment around Caldwell. She was set to receive it at another council gathering in December 2022. Hey you! If you liked this story, give it a like.